We got some absolutely huge news here for Kamala Harris in the state of Michigan. Michigan's super, super important. It's supposed to be the most likely state to go blue, and Kamala Harris potentially having some impact from the issue going on with Palestine right now and everything that happened with the DNC with the Palestinian, speaker. And so what we have here is some really, really big news that can actually end up helping Kamala Harris win the state of Michigan. So this article title says RFK Jr. must remain on the Michigan ballot, judge says. So this is really, really huge because Cornel West and Joe Stein are both on the ballot. So I'd actually previously reported that Cornel West was actually off the ballot. But what ended up happening was it says Cornel West is back on Michigan's presidential ballot, judge rules. And so he's on there. They said that the issues that they had with the affidavit were fine. Everything ended up good. So Cornel West, unfortunately, is back on the ballot. I believe Joe Stein is also on the ballot. So, of course, RFK suspending his campaign in swing states, not fully dropping out. He's going to stay in blue and red states. But he's trying to remove his name from a bunch of states now, but he's actually having trouble doing this a lot. And so in the states where he's really struggling are Michigan, Wisconsin, and North Carolina, and I think also Nevada. So these are all obviously very, very massive states, and Michigan is pretty much having him stay on the ballot. So it says a Michigan judge ruled that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. must remain on the November presidential ballot, dealing a blow to his crusade to strategically remove his ticket from the battleground state. Kennedy suspended his campaign and endorsed former President Donald Trump in August. Since then, he has sought to withdraw his name in states like Michigan, where the race could be close. At the same time, he is trying to remain on the ballot in states where he's unlikely to make a difference between Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. Kennedy filed a lawsuit Friday in Michigan's Court of Claims against Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, a Democrat, in an effort to withdraw his name. Michigan's election officials had previously rejected Kennedy's notice of withdrawal. In a post on X earlier in the day, Benson said under Michigan law, candidates who are nominated and accept a minor party's nomination, quote, shall not be permitted to withdraw. So he's also running into another issue in North Carolina as well, because for North Carolina, they actually already have printed a bunch of ballots. There's thousands of ballots have already been printed. So even if they wanted to kick him off, they'd have to figure out, like, shoot, we'd have to reprint all of these ballots. And North Carolina, obviously another massive, massive state. And arguably, you could kind of argue that individual Rust Belts are even more important than before, because in the past, let's say you were to pick up Michigan because it's bluer than the other states, but you were to lose the other ones, it wouldn't end up mattering that much. But because you have the two-tiered strategy now, if you're able to win, let's say, one Rust Belt state, it's actually really, really impactful. Like, let's say you pick up Michigan, for example. With Michigan, and then you pick up, like, NC or GA, and then AZ and Nevada, I think you might be able to win, or, you know, one of those combinations. You can win with that combination of the two, right? You don't need to win all of the Rust Belt states. So it makes each individual state arguably even more important, because to win all of them, winning one of them, you know, if you win Michigan because it's much closer than Wisconsin and Pennsylvania like it has been in the past, doesn't really help you that much. But here it's super, super important. So this is super important for Kamala Harris, really, because, you know, if Kamala Harris is going to get eaten out by Cornel West and Joe Stein, and then Trump is not going to be getting eaten by anybody, it would be really, really bad for Kamala Harris, and honestly, it would make it pretty difficult to win. So RFK still being on the ballot is really, really helpful to offset that cost where, you know, Trump is also going to be getting eaten out. Is super, super important. And it could come down to the wire. And this article says RFK Jr.'s name on ballot poses danger for Trump in key states. It says, so here what it says is, quote, if a candidate is on the ballot, someone will vote for them regardless, says Christopher Thrasher, a ballot access consultant who analyzed third-party campaigns. I can't tell if Christopher Thrasher sounds more like a porn name or a WWE name. Like, it could legitimately be both. You could be a wrestler and be called Christopher Thrasher, or you could definitely be called a porn star called Christopher Thrasher. I can't believe that's real. The primary showed as much this year on both sides. How many votes is anyone's guess at this point? So it's pretty interesting because him being on the ballot, there's some obviously mitigation factor in that Kennedy has endorsed Trump, so presumably there's going to be a lot of Kennedy voters who are going to be voting for Trump even if he's still on the ballot. But the other situation is just the fact that he's on the ballot, there's definitely going to be people who end up voting for Kennedy regardless, which is really, really important to note, you know, for this campaign, obviously. So it will eat votes from Trump for sure, no matter what. And it's super, super crucial, if nothing else, because Cornel and Jill are on the ballot, you need to balance out that loss. with something, and so this is actually going to help a lot. They seem to be convinced that somehow Kennedy being in blue states is going to make it so that Kamala has to spend money in the blue states, which is kind of insane. It doesn't make any sense. Also, another state as well says Wisconsin and Michigan have clear statutes that prevent nominees from withdrawing. Thrasher said. Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson's office has said state law prevents more marginal candidates from withdrawing from consideration. Kennedy is expected to appear as a nominee for the Natural Law Party there. In Wisconsin, the state's election commission overwhelmingly voted that Tuesday that Kennedy could not be taken off because he is still alive, citing the only exception for removal being death. But that just begs the question: how down for the cause is RFK? How down for the cause is he? Because if he wants to get off the Wisconsin ballot, there's a way for him to do it. And so the question is, does he feel like seppukuing himself for, Trump winning? Is it enough? Does he think Wisconsin could do it? He has a chance to do something really crazy here. And then, does Trump kind of think like, oh, shoot, man, like maybe I just poison the guy, get him off the Wisconsin ballot, I win Wisconsin, win the election. He really does care a lot about himself. And the only way for him to be taken off in Wisconsin is death. So that's a little bit scary. RFK, you might want to take out, or I guess you wouldn't want to take out life insurance policy, or you would, because you're about to get into a situation where you want to pay out. So you might want to take out a life insurance policy, dude. Watch out. And is RFK down to seppuku himself? The only way to get removed for the ballot in Wisconsin is death. So hopefully he's not going to go that route. I hope he does not do that. But that would be, the only way. It says the North Carolina Board of Elections, meanwhile, reportedly voted this week to deny Kennedy's removal request due to the fact absentee ballots have already been sent out. Regardless of statute, in practice, the ultimate deadline for a candidate withdrawal is the day before military and overseas absentee ballots are sent out, Thrasher added. And like everything else, that can vary state by state. North Carolina, another huge, huge state, and I believe Cornell and Jill are both, unfortunately, on the ballot there as well. So again, a really necessary thing. This almost becomes a requirement as opposed to an aid. Like, in order to win, it's like, shoot, you kind of need this as opposed to a want, right? Almost like a need as opposed to a want. So this is really, really huge for Kamala Harris. Big, big news. Also, if we look at the Michigan polls, her numbers are actually going down. Now, to be fair, we are actually being inundated with a bunch of what I call dookie tier pollsters. A lot of these pollsters are really, really horrible. But you have Trafalgar here. But a lot of these polls, you have Fabrizio here. But a lot of those are national polls here in Michigan. We can see they're going down regardless really of the pollster. So a new poll came out from Glenn Gariff Group that's sponsored by the Detroit News and by local areas. I don't know about Glenn Gariff Group. They seem kind of unknown. But it's being sponsored by local people, so I don't know if that kind of gives it some kind of like boost of any kind in terms of credibility. But we could see her numbers are definitely dropping here. And so even Redfield that has her +3, Redfield is a D-rated pollster, so I don't even accept it. For me, it has to be a C-rated pollster above. Epic MRA is +1. I'm not exactly. I think they're somewhere middle of the road. Emerson is +4. Morning Consult +2. These are not good margins. You need to be up by like 3 to 5 points in the state. And what you can see pretty consistently is a lot of these polls have a lot of people outstanding who are not decided yet. So a lot of these would be like 94, 95, 93, etc. as a sum. And so I think that's really important. So the debate, I think, is going to be really important because I think even now a lot of people are not paying attention to the race. They don't care. And so I think the debate will be outside of the internet, right? Outside of the internet, outside of real life, a lot of people I think just don't care right now. I think the debate is going to be the first time where a lot of people are going to tune in and really be able to digest Kamala's even the nominee in the first place. And so I think the debate is going to be super, super important for Kamala Harris. But her numbers are getting worse, so they're going down. You can see this, right? It went down from 3.4 all the way down to 2.1. So she's tanking right now in the aggregate. Now, there is a lot of bad pollsters coming out. But nonetheless, she's just stuck. Even like the polls that aren't bad, she's barely winning. She needs to be up consistently by, I think, 5 points, at least 3 to 5. I don't know how much of an overperformance impact she's going to have in the Rust Belt because Biden had overperformance in the Sun Belt, but not in the Rust Belt. But Kamala Harris is a different beast. She potentially has a 08 Obama vote, but how much impact will that have in Michigan and those kind of states? We don't know. But you kind of need Michigan unless you want to win out the entire Sun Belt plus NC. It's a risky strategy. I think now you kind of want to look at the Rust Belt as your hedges as opposed to prior where you looked at the Sun Belt as the hedges. Because the polls are, I think, considering polling errors from previous years and then also the fundamentals of the Kamala Harris effect, like Kamala Harris is going to have a larger Kamala Harris impact in Georgia than she is in Michigan, for example, in my opinion, because there's a lot of black people in Georgia, for example, and I think she's going to perform really well because she's doing really well with young people and those people, and I think she's going to have a bigger impact in those states compared to the Rusty Belt states like Michigan. But this could be something that wins her the election legitimately. It literally could be the thing. Even here, right? In some of the Michigan polls and stuff like that, they'll have Stein and them will have 1% and those kinds of things, and Cornel West and everything. So super, super huge news. RFK stuck on the ballot in Michigan. He's stuck on the ballot in Wisconsin unless he wants a seppuku, or if Trump is really that down, if he wants to poison him or something. Hopefully none of that happens. I really hope it does not. That is way too far. But Trump is desperate. He's a narc. He's a narcissist. Who knows? That's the only way he can get off the ballot. North Carolina also not looking like he's going to be on the ballot there, or he will be able to get off the ballot. Sorry. So a really, really big thing that might legitimately end up saving Kamala because her numbers are going down. And Cornel West and Joe Stein are on the ballot in these states. So huge, huge news for Kamala Harris.